And that actually drives us to one of the principal issues. The military forces in the Persian Gulf are doing some of the most, quite frankly, sophisticated planning that any military anywhere has ever done. Each of the component commanders and the Central Command planning staff under General Franks are actually driving us to how, in fact, we do effects-based operations across the military services. A good example of the effects-based operations you see going on every day are the leaflet operations. In the 40s or 50s, you might have said, hey, to defeat the enemy, I have to defeat the enemy's army. No, I have to neutralize the enemy's army, and if the enemy's army decides to surrender because I use leaflets and convince them that there's a better alternative than trying to fight me, then that's somebody I don't have to neutralize. And so there's an advantage here, and what we are trying to do with not only air operations, but air and ground operations, is really focus on what the desired political and military effect are, and then shape those desired effects on the battle space. But it only really truly works if you understand how each event that you do, everything that you do, how that ties back to the specific military and policy objectives that have been established for the commanders. And we do this fairly robustly in the Air Force, and I don't mean to belittle either of the other. Desert Storm caused us to try to think about this. And so we literally come up with it. If I have an objective, what are my tasks that I have to build to achieve that objective? What are the effects that I need to create on the battle space? And then what are the things that I need to do, what targets I need to hit, things I need to jam, information I need to corrupt on the battle space to achieve those desired effects? So in many ways, every single thing shown to tie back to a political objective, or I'm going to take it off the list of things to do, because we have too many things that we have to do things that are either not appropriate or not in line with the political or military guidance. Slide, please. But the system that we develop in terms of developing both desired effects, examining capabilities, and desired concepts of operation to achieve those effects doesn't work in isolation. The thing about war is it's against two humans. It's a human against a human, and the adversary is thinking, and he's trying to do something against you. And so every concept of operations or idea or capability that you have, you must then vet that against what the adversary is going to do or what you anticipate the adversary is going to do. In doing that, you can evaluate the enemy as target systems or as systems of systems. And that will help you understand how those different things interrelate and where the vulnerabilities between perhaps an integrated air defense system and a communication systems might lie to enable you to more effectively prosecute those operations. Slide, please. From an air perspective, this is how this is wrapped up and brought together on an air tasking order. We look at the CONOPS, we look at the desired effects we want to create on the battle space, we look at the available assets, and quite frankly, we have one ATO in this war, and everybody's on the ATO. Everybody is integrated and working off that single air tasking order, so there's common command and control architecture for all of the air players that are involved. And so it's a critical element, and I think we learned that lesson a little bit the hard way in Operation Allied Force. But then we evaluate the target sets that we need to do, those effects that we need to create on the battle space. We bring those together into an integrated plan, and the integrated air and ground and maritime plans are in fact that. They clearly have separate elements, but these plans have been more integrated than we have ever seen them in the U.S. military history. One could say that we fought side by side as services in Desert Storm, that would be a fairly close description, but we didn't fight in an integrated manner. The Air Force has sent a Major General to work at the Combined Force Land Component Commander's headquarters to enable a significantly greater degree of interaction between air and surface operations to better integrate these plans. But we build those things together, and then you come up with something that looks like an air tasking order or a piece of paper, and you send it out to the troops, and they execute. It's not quite that easy, but it is, quite frankly, I think, a significant achievement on all the men and women who are out in the Persian Gulf at this point in terms of bringing all those different effects from each of the capabilities of each of the services together to achieve the best result possible. Slide, please. There clearly are going to be opportunities to better do this in the future. We have emerging operational concepts. Joint Forces Command has been tasked to develop and further evaluate these. We have emerging capabilities, both in terms of munitions, in terms of aircraft, in terms of information capabilities, that we simply have scratched the surface on. But what in the end we hope to do with concepts such as effects-based operations are to fight more effectively, efficiently, and to make conflicts shorter, because we can attack the adversary more completely as a system in a shorter period of time as opposed to a sequential series of attritional type operations. Slide.
I see on the list of concepts there's shock and awe. Could you describe what that means? I mean, what does it represent?
That's probably a really good question. I think it actually gets right back to some of the discussion on effects-based operations. You don't win a war by not intimidating an adversary. I think General Franks, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think the effects that we are trying to create is to make it so apparent and so overwhelming at the very outset of potential military operations that the adversary quickly realizes that there is no real alternative here other than to fight and die or to give up. And so they really are trying to kind of ensure that everybody in Iraq understands what's coming. Because if they understand what's coming in a macro sense, I think that there will be a greater likelihood that they might choose not to fight for the regime.
So do you think there'll be demonstrations early in?
Quite frankly, that's what will happen is the great unknown. We could speculate all we want, and there's a million answers, and everybody's probably got an opinion on that. But quite frankly, we really have little clear understanding of exactly what will happen when we step across that line. I think there's going to be a wide variety of different reactions by the Iraqi people and the Iraqi military forces.
Still on that last effects-based slide, two questions. Could you tell us what rapid halt means, other than the clear notion of bringing the war to a halt as soon as possible? And secondly, you talked about new concepts of munitions. I'm not asking you what's going to get employed in this coming conflict, but what are the new kind of concepts that you're floating around? Clearly, just everything is going bang is kind of primitive at the end of the day.
Right. I'll talk about that, and I've got a couple more slides here on collateral damage and collateral damage mitigation, and I'll actually talk about some of the capabilities that we've brought to the fight. Slide, please. One of the issues I think that routinely comes up is for folks who are not involved in military operations and have not been involved in the extensive planning, is to understand the difficult and really comprehensive process we use to mitigate collateral damage. Because the Air Combat Command and the United States Air Force, and I personally have been working with the Carr Center for Human Rights from Harvard University. I really, Michael Ignatieff and Sarah Sewell in their program are a wonderful program. They are bringing non-governmental organizations, military officers, policymakers, media into a forum in which we can discuss these issues and better understand each of our requirements. And in the end, all of our requirements is the same. If we were required to conduct military operations, we would desire to conduct those while minimizing collateral damage and unintended damage. And so I think we've made great strides in that area over the last decade or so, and I'd just like to kind of show you a little bit of some of what this is. Slide, please. First, we all have to understand that the term collateral damage is often misused. From a military sense, collateral damage means, or by definition, is that damage that can be expected from the reasonable occurrence from attacking a system, or attacking a target. For example, if I looked at a target and I was going to put a 2,000-pound bomb on it and windows broke across the street, I can plan for that, and that is collateral damage. It is the anticipated effects created by the employment of force. That is, go ahead.
Including civilian deaths or human deaths?
In collateral damage calculations, we try to make an assessment of human casualties. And you saw perhaps a lot of that take place in Allied force, where targets were struck and timed specifically to minimize the potential for civilian casualties.
I just want to make sure in your definition the damage includes structures as well as people.
It includes both structural damage and civilian casualties.